intentionally infected. This is a Flanders. A Flanders is a Belgian beer. This is a Flanders Red. This one has won medals. Was made with the beer club. But when you see a white ring around the very top where your beer would end, and if you would tip it one way or the other, and there's a white ring there that stays, this one doesn't have it. I mean, beer. Cut him off. He's done.
Just the light right there behind it.
But I'm just using this as a level
I
to
can't
give
see
you an
it.
example. If you see a white ring when you do this in a beer, you have an infection, and it's going to become sour. Sour beers are all the craze. When I started, sour beers weren't invented other than the Belgians, and those were the beers that I dumped routinely. You know, now I have appreciation for sours. But this beer doesn't have that ring. No matter what I do to shake it, it's not there. But I had one. I had one that had an infection that I meant to bring. I stuck it in my freezer to chill it before I left, and guess what? It's still in the freezer. Bottle bomb lesson number 2.
Yeah.
Luckily, it was a flip top, so it probably will just push out the top. Damn, I hate that.
You're in
Last time I
trouble.
brought an oxidized beer as an example of what not to do. This time I was going to bring a true infected beer and forgot it. But this is a Flanders, so we'll serve you a Flanders. But I want you to get the lactic acid kind of notes from a sour beer because it will give you a hint of what.
Now, is this normal or is this going to be a problem? Is it a problem here or not?
This beer is a medal winning beer.
Oh,
So
that's like a problem.
this is intentionally soured about a year in the barrel, in a used bourbon barrel. The bourbon barrel had a Russian Imperial Stout in it before that we made for the club. We dumped it and then we put this Flanders in and we infected it. And we intentionally infected it with bugs that we would normally see in a Flanders. So a lot of the yeast companies now have gone through and they've found out what species are there and they will sell them to you so you can replicate. Lactobacillus, Brettanomyces. So a lot of brats. That concoction I think is about 6 different bugs. So it's called a red, but it's really an amber. I mean, it's same like, do you remember when the red beers came out, like Red Wolf and all? So it's really amber, but we call that a red. So it has characteristic lactic acids. And so if you get a beer that begins to sour, you will begin getting that lactic acid taste in the beer. And lactic acid is not necessarily desirable in a lot of beers. It has become more accepting today with all the sour beers. But if you entered a Pilsner, an American light lager, and it had that sourness, man, you're ding. Your Budweiser shouldn't taste sour. Okay, so that's a sour.
Oh yeah, you can taste it all.
So there's 2 things to look for in infected beers. The ring around the bottle, that little bitty white haze around the bottle, and there will sometimes be a very little light dusty cloud at the very top of the bottle. That's a traditional sign that you have an infection, that you didn't do a good job of disinfecting. When I moved down, I had a horrible time the first few beers I made have an infection. And at that time, I wasn't kegging a whole lot. I was still bottling a lot, like you guys probably will be. And I have a bottle tree. And it's a thing that comes up, and it's got all these spikes that come out. And I dump them in my star sand, and I put them on my bottle tree to let them drain and dry. And then I pull them off, and I fill them, and I cap them. It never dawned on me in the shipping that it would have gotten infected. And it did. And so I was sanitizing my bottles and putting them on an infected tree, letting them dry, and then it just got infected.
What was it made of? Wood?
Plastic. It's plastic. And it's just that much little residue. And so I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I thought about it and went through the process. did this. So then I got so paranoid, I took all my bottles and stuck them in my oven, and I pasteurized them in the oven, and I still had an infection. So I'm ruling everything out, and I got down to the point of the bottle tree, and it was the bottle tree, and I disinfected the bottle tree and never had a problem after. And once you get an infection, it's really hard, but you got to trace back through all the steps to figure out where it's possibly coming from. So if